Hello, welcome to Cat's Got Your Tongue. This is the podcast in association with Cats Protection. My name is Adam Brown and I am your host, a self-confessed cat obsessive and a cat dad to the wonderful 10-year-old Ruby. Now, in each episode of this podcast, of course, we are bringing you celebrity guests who love their cats just as much as we do. And as cat fanatics, this is our chance really to talk all things cat related. Now remember, if you are listening to the show, we do also have the full episodes up on YouTube. So if you do want to watch the episodes, you can do. Please head on over there and you can watch all the episodes in full. And as always, on the show, we want to hear your funny feline stories. Our cats are always doing things to make us laugh. Maybe you've got a story you want to tell us about, a cat dilemma, or maybe just a question you've always wanted answering about your cat. You can get in touch with us right now on email on pod@cats.org.uk, or you can send us a text, or even better, send us a voice note if you want, if you're one of those voice note kind of people, on our WhatsApp on 07824 551 076. So let's get into it. So I'm a huge fan of today's guest on Cat's Got Your Tongue. He's a stand-up comedian, broadcaster and actor. It's the brilliant Elis James. Elis, welcome to Cat's Got Your Tongue.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's really great to get you on because I'm aware that you're relatively new to the world of cats. Is that right?
Big time, yeah. Well, I was allergic to them as a little kid and so kind of wrote them off because I think this might have been based on one instance. I went to visit my one of my grandmother's friends when I was very young, and she had a cat, and then I remember being, having a runny nose and itchy eyes and all that kind of stuff. So then I thought, okay, well, I must be allergic to cats. And then ignored them for years, and then I stayed at a comedy promoter's house in Yorkshire. And I was staying at his house after doing his gigs, and as we drove back to his house, he said, "I've got cats, is that a problem?" But I didn't have anywhere else to stay, so I lied and said it wasn't, and it wasn't. And I thought, oh, that's good. And then when our daughter started going to a childminder, our childminder had cats. I wasn't allergic to them either, so I realised I must have grown out of it. And these cats were very old. They were 19, two sisters, but they were very affectionate. So I would go and pick my daughter up, and they would sit on my lap for about an hour, and I would just sit there, and it was blissful. And I did have a dog as a kid, which I'm now allergic to for some reason. But with cats, having never seen the appeal, as soon as my daughter started going to Sue's house, the childminder, I was like, these things are absolutely amazing. And they are like having mini tigers in your house, which is also very exciting. So yeah, and then they're quite a comedian-y sort of animal because it's less intense than having a dog, for instance. So a lot of comics have cats, and I now live in a quite suburban area. So you drive around or you walk around, and you just see cats, especially in the summer, just lazing on the pavement or on top of fences and things. I just think I really, really like it. I think they're incredible.
What point did you decide that you were going to get your own then? Because I remember seeing on your social media that when you posted, and you said something along the lines of like, "This is one of the best days of my entire life" when you finally got a cat.
I'd never had one, and so we got two, and they were kittens. They were about 12 or 13 weeks old, I think, and they were so small. I don't think I'd ever stroked a kitten, actually. And my kids, because they were used to them, because the childminder loved cats, really loved cats. And I hadn't had a pet for so long, and my record at keeping domestic houseplants alive is very, very bad. And I thought, well, if plants in a plant pot are dying, then this doesn't look great, does it? This is probably a bad sign. And I put it off, and then we moved house, and there were all these things that got in the way. And then we'd moved house, we moved in, and the house sort of was sorted, and we felt quite settled and domestic. And then we decided to take the plunge, and it's brilliant. It's so good, and they're two brothers, and they're quite different. We've had them now since about November, I think. So that's about 8 or 9 months, and they're very much a part of the house. It is challenging in ways I hadn't quite expected. People used to very knowingly say, "Oh, they'll bring animals in if you leave them out. If you let them out at night, blah blah blah, they'll bring animals in." And I used to think, yeah, was that once a decade at most? but we are working on that. And that and the litter tray initially they were probably the only downsides, because if I'm watching telly and one of them comes to sit on my lap, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, it is the best. It's just an indescribable feeling, isn't it? Like, I think to people who haven't got cats, it's quite hard to explain the thrill of a cat just like choosing you and coming to sit on your knee. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. I'd love to know what they think. Like, there's one is more affectionate than the other one, and he will always come and sit on my lap if he can. And then he will look at me. This is going to sound pathetic, but he will honestly look at me, and his eyes to me are saying, I really want you to like me, and I like you. So can we meet halfway and agree that we like each other? And he often does that thing where he will lie on his back and sort of offering his stomach, and he likes being tickled and stroked. And they are outdoor cats. A friend of mine's has got an outdoor cat, and he's got a tracker, and he was showing me like a sort of heat map, like a footballer would have. And his cat does tend to roam in the same sort of 4 or 5 streets, and they live near a park. He doesn't really go that far into the park. So my cats don't have trackers, but I'm fascinated to where they go. I think I might buy one of these trackers because I'm just curious. And what I hadn't expected was that I would be so soppy about it. So they both had their first illness last week, in fact. They got a virus. So for a few days they were a bit hot and they were off their food, which was really horrible. And I've got young kids. And when your children don't eat, it's actually a really unpleasant feeling, because you feel quite helpless and you know that they should eat, but the kid doesn't want to eat and there's nothing you can do about it. And it was the same with the cats. Like, I was giving them treats that they never turn their noses up at. I was doing everything I could, and they were just looking really sad and forlorn. And it's a bit like when you've got to take a very young child to A&E or something. You've got to advocate on their behalf, and you say, so they're off their food or whatever. I was saying to the vet, there's something wrong and I don't know what it is, but they can't tell me because I don't have the power of speech. I was amazed at how worried I was. I thought I was going to be. I was amazed actually at how overwhelming I found it when they were very little. I just couldn't get enough of these things, and it sort of unlocked a part of my personality that I didn't think I had.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm exactly the same. I've had my cat for coming on for 4 years, so just over 3.5 years, and I'd never had a cat before that, and I found that it's changed me as a person. It sounds crazy, but I think that when you have a cat as a cat owner, you can identify with that to an extent. Like, I think that's interesting what you said, Elis, about it unlocking certain aspects of your personality which you didn't really know existed before.
I remember a friend of mine years ago, this is probably 20 years ago, way before I had my first cats, because we got 2. Their boss, his cat died and he couldn't go into work for days. And I remember thinking, why? And now I completely understand that now. Like, on the first week, right? So the kids are obsessed with them already. We're loving it. It's going really, really well. At that stage, obviously, they weren't going outside because they were too young, too little, and they were just too small and too vulnerable and naive. And it was like a Sunday evening, and one of them was in the living room, and the other one was nowhere to be seen. So I was looking for him. And I looked for him alone for the first half an hour. I thought, I'm not going to tell anyone because it's a little bit alarming, but I don't want to raise, sort of panic. And he wasn't in any of the places that he'd been, because even in the first few days, they find little spots that make them feel comfortable. So I looked in all of those spots and he wasn't there. So I looked in all of those spots again and he wasn't there. And then I started branching out and looking in different places and he wasn't there. And by this point, right, I'm starting to get a little bit worried. So I sort of offhand said to Izzy, I said, I don't know where one of the cats is. Where could he be? Have you seen him out of interest? She said, you haven't opened the door, have you? I said, no, I haven't opened the door. She said, well, I haven't opened the door. And then it was the guy from Amazon came. The door's open for 10 seconds. Maybe it's that. So then we looked in the house for another half an hour. Couldn't find him anywhere. By this point now, I'm convinced that when the man from Amazon came, he snuck out somehow and had gone missing, right? So now I'm like, okay, stay here. Make sure the doors are locked. And I will go and look. And I was looking up and down the street. I was thinking, he's a kitten. We're quite near a busy road. I thought, oh my God, I've owned this cat for 5 days, and what if it gets knocked over? It'd be absolutely terrible. Dereliction of duty. I can't believe I'm the worst cat owner ever. Now, I'm looking for a dead cat by this point, right? I've sort of catastrophized to the extent that I'm thinking, how am I going to explain it to the kids? The kids were already in tears. It's going to be absolutely horrific. And then Izzy rang me, and he was asleep under a bookshelf, right, which he'd never done before, and it was absolutely fine. And I walked home with this overwhelming feeling of relief that the cat was fine. But then I thought, there are now other things in my life that I'm incredibly protective over. And I thought, God, it really emphasised how much responsibility it is, because ultimately, obviously, they are your pets and you are responsible for them. And I don't think I'd fully appreciated that until at one point, I thought there was going to be something wrong.
Yeah, and that's interesting, because my cat has not been very well recently, and it just hit me in a completely different way. That sort of instinct kicked in of this like ultra protective, like, oh my God, what if something happens to her? Luckily, she's on the mend now. But I want to get into a little bit more about your two cats, Elis. So names, personalities. I'm always intrigued.
We initially said to the kids, so my kids are 9 and 5, but they were 8 and 4 at the time. I said, you can name them, and my son wanted to name them Cleo and Uncle Todd. Which I thought was the funniest name for a cat I'd ever heard. And I was so delighted that one of my cats was going to be called Uncle Todd. I don't know where he got that from. So it was, it lends itself to a lot of humour. We're trying to move Uncle Todd from wet food onto dry food. Uncle Todd isn't using his litter tray. Where's Uncle Todd? He's up that tree because it makes him feel safe. Why is Uncle Todd on that big fence? We had a lot of fun with him being called Uncle Todd.
Yeah, Uncle Todd's licking himself again. Yeah.
Yeah. And then eventually my daughter said, we cannot have a cat that's called Uncle Todd. The school will not be worth living so it got changed then at my childminder's suggestion to Freckle and Whiskers, because Freckle has a little freckle and Whiskers doesn't, which are names I don't particularly like, if I'm honest. I think they're quite basic. But I know Whiskers was Uncle Todd, and I still refer to him as Uncle Todd in my mind, because I think that's the great lost cat.
Yeah, he's underneath it all. Truthfully, still Uncle Todd in your mind. Is it like, you know the truth?
Yeah, Whiskers / Uncle Todd is tremendously. He's tremendously affectionate and seems to really thrive on human contact and interaction, and wants a lot of cuddling and affection. There's a great word Welsh word for affection called maldod, which is when you're making a fuss or something, and he likes a lot of maldod. Freckle is, do you know what, the most affection or maldod he's had was when he was ill, actually, which was sort of heartbreaking, because you're like, if he was well, he would be out and about loving life. But he's just sitting on my daughter's bed being stroked because he feels rotten, which wasn't very nice. And Freckle's a bit more standoffish. He does a lot of very playful biting, which I thought he'd grow out of, but he hasn't done. It doesn't hurt you, but Whiskers never ever does that. Whiskers / Uncle Todd. If they're waiting for their breakfast, as I'm walking down the stairs to put the food in their bowls, he will sort of playfully bite my feet because he's impatient, whereas Whiskers is he's a much gentler soul. And they were brothers, and they are brothers, and initially they were obviously a bit scared. I think they were about 12 weeks old when we got them, something like that. And for the first month, they went absolutely everywhere together. They used to sleep in the same basket, and they were never separated. And it was such a sweet thing to see, because obviously they've known each other all their lives. But now, they will do their own thing because they're more independent.
Yeah, but do they get on then, Elis? Do they get on with each other?
They get on brilliantly. Yeah, they do a little bit of play fighting, but it's never anything serious. They've never had a proper argument.
Yeah,
they're really I think they like each other. I mean, it's sort of absurd that I'm saying this, because this is all my own projection, but they just seem to get on. They often sit next to each other, in front of the TV. Watching Bundesliga highlights on TNT Sport. So they've never argued or fought to the extent that's worried me. It's just also a friend of mine, she's got a cat or two cats, and she calls it the zoomies, where at about midnight they go mad.
Yeah.
And they just run around the house for like half an hour, and then they get tired out, and then they're normal again.
Yeah. Did you find, did both yours do that?
Yeah, not every night, but often for about 20 minutes at around midnight, they'll just be really energetic. And I've never understood why.
Yeah, I think it is something to do with like that desire to have that energy release, you know, some sort of instinct that they kind of genetically kind of have, and it's this kind of the release that they're searching for. But and it is actually it's a bit more common in indoor cats. My cat doesn't go outside, so she doesn't have as much, you know.
Yes, yeah, they did used to do it more before they went outside, actually.
And in terms of them going out, do you ever worry about them? Because this is because my cat is just indoor, and I always think to myself, I couldn't change that now because I'd just be like an anxious dad, just waiting.
I didn't want them to be outdoor cats, and Izzy did, and that was a deal breaker. I found it really nerve-wracking, and then I think eventually after the third time, I think Izzy was in, and she just opened the cat flap, and they were gone for about half an hour, and then they came back. And now I just trust them to come back because touch wood, they always do. But because there's a lot of comedians with cats, and I would often text comics and say, you know, your cat's indoors and all that kind of stuff. And it was a sort of 50-50 split. And it took a lot to get used to, but now I trust them. But there is an anxiety there.
Yeah, I just because I know what my cat's like, and I sometimes look at her, I think, as much as I love her, I just couldn't trust you to be out. like she's just so like naive.
Yeah.
So in terms of food, did they have any special? Are you? Because I'm such a pushover with my cat. Like I'm honestly the worst person when it comes to like treats and stuff.
We got told that it's time for them to move on to dry food and adult food, because the packet says 0 to 12 months, and they're not quite 12 months yet. But the vet said, oh no, it's definitely time for them to move on to adult food and dry food. And the vet, I don't know if she just saw us coming, recommended one of the more expensive ones. And because I'm a pushover, I thought, all right, then I'll buy that. Before that, they were eating fairly common or garden stuff that you could buy in any like newsagent. Yeah. And they prefer that stuff. So they're like kids in the way that, you know, like if you offered an 8-year-old child, I don't know, beautifully cooked sea bass or Haribo, they would prefer Haribo. They sort of, my cats prefer the sort of cheaper stuff that you buy like in Spa to the more expensive stuff that we had to buy online that my vet recommended. So we're trying now to move them on to the more expensive, drier stuff. Because I hadn't realised how bad cat food smells as well, the wet stuff. It's quite an unpleasant smell. So Cleo/Freckle likes the new posh stuff. Whiskers/Uncle Todd. Every time I put the posh stuff in the bowl, he looks at me as if to say, come on, mate. I let you stroke me all the time, and this is how you repay me. Just give me the cheap stuff, for God's sake. So that's a bit of a problem, I think. But I don't quite know how to square that circle.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, I think. That sort of that transition phase, especially like going from, you know, kitten to the adult food, and also as well, even to be honest, if I'd like to say it gets easier, but even my cat at 10, after 4 years, she'll just inexplicably turn against some food randomly. You know what I mean? She'll be like, yeah, I'm not into that anymore.
Yeah, they're like little kids. It's like when little kids will suddenly say, oh, I don't like pasta and cheese anymore. You're like, what? Yeah. You've asked for this every day for 4 years, and now you don't like it. What on earth is happening there?
Yeah, so it's frustrating, but it's just, for some reason, again, it's part of their weird and wonderful personalities. Is there a favourite in your house? Please tell me the favourite, Ellis.
I was discussing this with Izzy. Uncle Todd is easily my favourite.
Yeah.
He's just so much more affectionate.
But are you his favourite?
Yeah, I am his favourite and he's my favourite. I mean, it sounds like I'm body shaming him. He is more conventionally attractive than Cleo / Freckle, in that he looks like a cat on a greetings card.
Yeah.
He just looks. He look. If when little kids draw cats, that is what he looks like. Whereas Freckle's got a slightly odd look about him.
So he was the cat that was blessed with the looks, was he? The brother that got the looks.
Oh, he's handsome. Yeah. He is a handsome bloke. He's a lovely little thing. He really is.
Do you ever get jealous when one of the cats sits on your wife's knee and not yours?
No, I think she gets jealous of me, and she often says he prefers you. And I go, yeah, deal with it.
Do you ever try and get their attention to actually come and sit on your knee as well? Like when you're just doing you're just sort of you're tapping your knee and before you.
Yeah, like my friend Colin's just bought a dog, and I was working with Colin, and he brought the dog in. And that dog, even though it's a little puppy, does do what Colin wants. And if he wants him to sit on his knee, he will. Whereas the cat's place slightly harder to get. But, that's the big difference between the two of them. But Whiskers / Uncle Todd is, he's also, he just loves being stroked. He's a big attention seeker, really.
Would you consider getting any more?
No, I think, the interpersonal dynamics would come into play because it currently works at the moment. Like those two get on. But if you brought in a new cat and they fought, I don't really know how we would play that. I mean, God, this is weird. I do occasionally imagine what I'll do when they die. Because that's the thing, is because obviously, I'm trying to work out how old I'll be if they live to sort of X and X. I don't know what I will do then. But no, because they're still so young, see. So they're not even a year old. So it's great. I went to a friend's house on New Year's Eve, and she had 2 cats, which were by comparison absolutely massive. So I sort of can't imagine. I can't imagine them being like big old fat cats.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, but I think it's interesting having them from being kittens as well. So you've seen that sort of them growing almost, haven't you? Before your very eyes. Whereas my cat was already mature when I got her.
The thing I'd like would be to see even younger kittens, because they were sort of 12 weeks old. I mean, when kittens are tiny, my God.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. A couple more questions for you, Elis. Something else that I wanted to ask is, obviously you mentioned that, it's going to be the birthday quite soon.
Yeah.
Have you got any plans for the birthday? That sounds crazy, I know.
No, I'm going to go to Pets at Home and I'm going to buy them a load of new toys.
Yeah. Are you quite sort of... Did you treat them to a lot of things? I spend far too much money on my cat. Have you got to that stage yet? They
will get more Dreamies than I usually allow them. They're big fans of Dreamies. And it's funny. I think my kids were like that, because kids, it's any excuse for a party with young children. And I think they'll really buy into the fact that it's the cat's birthday. I think they'll really enjoy that. So, there'll probably be a party of some sort where, rather than it being like cake and jammy Dodgers, it would be Felix.
Yeah, well, I made my cat a cake.
So, what's in a cat cake?
Well, I went to that. You're only how many months into a cat ownership, Ellis? It could get worse for you. You could end up at the stage where I'm at.
Okay.
So I went to supermarket, bought some hand-caught cod loin.
Wow.
Cooked it up, let it cool, seasoned it very slightly, and then formed it into the shape of a little mini cake. Put a little candle on top of it.
Colin the Caterpillar cake, but made with cod.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And then took it out, singing happy birthday to her.
Oh.
Put it next to her, but then she instantly made like a charge at it, and I panicked because the candle was lit. I had to quickly blow it out before she got there. And then, she loved it, absolutely loved it. There's so many things, honestly, there's so many things. You can make cat cocktails as well for your cat. Do your cats ever have the Do you know the disgusting flavoured yogurts that they love? Have you ever given them before?
I've never done that actually.
Oh yeah, they like Dreamies do them and a few other companies, and it's like a
I've not seen that.
yeah, they love them. So you can mix that with a little bit of water, and it's like a little cat cocktail. So if you wanted to throw a party, Elis, if you need a bit of advice on it, I'm your man.
Yeah.
But no, to be fair, you know, I probably need to take it to quite. I mean, I'm sat here with a cat print shirt on, so to say I took it to extremes.
Oh yeah, I've only just spotted that.
Yeah. So I just want to kind of ask you a couple of other things. Obviously, you know, you work in radio and you have done, you know, for a number of years. Something that people have asked us before. This one's actually come in from one of our listeners, Shelley from Norwich, who says a question for Elis. She wants to know if you leave the radio on for your cats when you go out at all. She likes to leave some music and chat on for her cat, who's called Gandalf, who's old and grey as well, which I love. I wondered if radio DJs did the same and even thought about broadcasting to their pets when they're on the air. I have actually given my cat a shout out on the radio before.
Oh, yeah. Nice. When we're in, the radio is almost always on. I love the radio. But I often think that they can't like it. Surely they don't like, you know, do they like music? I mean, but I'm quite soppy. Like when the utility room, which was effectively the cat's room where the litter tray is, that's where their basket was. That's where the baskets were initially when we first got them. And I didn't use the washing machine for days because I was like, it's gonna scare them. And he was like, this can't go on. We can't not have a washing machine because we've got 2 young cats. I was like, we'll use the laundrette forever. We'll adapt. We'll just adapt. And then obviously we used the washing machine and it was absolutely fine. But no, I don't. I think now that they go out, they are doing stuff on their own. Like we've got a couple of trees in our back garden. They like being up high, so they like climbing the tree. When I had to take them to the vet, I took them both to the vet, and they both ended up behind the vet's computer monitor. And the vet said, "Oh, that's where all young cats go, because obviously it's nice and high, so they can observe. But being up high sort of relaxes them, so they kind of, and it's a way of getting the measure of a new place. So I think they're just on high fences when I'm not in there. I think I need to buy one of these trackers because I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I'd be fascinating because it does fascinate me, the idea of where cats go. Because even when I leave for work, at silly o'clock in the morning, I see cats wandering about. I'm like, why are you out at 3:30 in the morning? Like, what are you doing?
My friend Stu's heat map was genuinely fascinating because they are his cats certainly. I don't know if this is if this is a general observation, was tremendously habitual. So it was always doing the same sort of circuit. Like if you do like 5K runs, you'll tend to do the same route. It was like that. It was always going to the same 4 streets. It was
It's like they're doing Strava for cats, and they're just doing the same thing. So just I'll pick up on something there about radio. I did read into some research that apparently there is a link between the heart rate of a cat and what music you play to him.
Really?
Yeah, apparently. So, they always say, when there's like bonfire night and there's fireworks going on, there's some radio stations do like spin-offs where it's like, they say classic music really calms them down. And it did, he said it had like almost like a tier, like a ranking like tier of like music that calms them the most and the music that calms them the least. And the most was classic and the least was heavy metal.
Yeah, like Rammstein and yeah.
Yeah. So then it's fair to say like, don't put on Slipknot, because they're not going to appreciate it.
Because we haven't had a bonfire night yet, and I hope then. Oh God, that will upset me.
So definitely, Mozart instead of Korn or something.
Instead of Motorhead.
Yeah. So we're going to get into our regular feature in just a second, Elis. But before we do that, have you got anything coming up? Current projects that you're working on that you wanted to give a mention?
I do a new podcast called Everything to Play For with Colin Murray. I do an existing podcast with Mike Bubbins and Steph Guerrero called Socially Distant Sports Bar, which is a lot of fun. I do a new history one called Oh What a Time with Tom Crane and Chris Scull. And obviously, show that started on Radio X. I do a podcast with my friend John Robbins on BBC Radio 5 Live and BBC Sounds. So those are the main things I'm doing at the moment.
Another thing that I don't know if you've ever heard Cat's Got Your Tongue before, but something we do quite regularly is just find out exactly how our guests communicate with their cats, because I realised when some of my friends came round that I've got a completely different voice when I talk to my cats.
Yes.
Which I wasn't really aware of, but it's just a more high-pitched version of my own voice. I've not got kids, so I imagine it's the way that I would speak to my kids if I had kids, but I've not got them, so I didn't realise I was doing it.
I speak to my cat. I often speak to them in Welsh.
Okay.
And I also speak to them. I use the kind of tone that a kind football coach of like an under-10s team would use. Come on, boys. Come on. Let's go and eat some food. Oh, come on. Go and eat some food. What are you doing over there? That kind of thing. Come on, you don't. Come on, come in. It's late. It's dark. You only have to go around and use a cat flap. Come on, the door's open. Come on, mate. I'm not going to keep the door open forever because the house is getting cold. Nope. Right. Fair enough. Bye. See ya.
Yeah. So, yeah, do you know, that's a really good way of describing it, actually, because it's kind of, firm, but fair, very approachable. Yeah.
Come on,
yeah.
mate.
Very encouraging as well.
No, you can tell me.
And finally, Elis, one question that we always end on is, what's the best thing about owning a cat?
It brings life to a house. So when I come home, like if the kids are at school and Izzy's out, there's always someone in, or there is usually someone in, and they are really fascinating creatures, and I will just sit there and I'll think to myself, why are you there? Why are you on that shelf? Or occasionally, like rather than they'll be next to the basket. I think the basket's really comfortable, and you've proven this to me for months. And yet, at the moment, you want to be next to it. It's just, I don't know. I because they can't speak, you're constantly trying to guess what they're doing, and I really like that. But affection from a cat when you're relaxing at the sort of in the evening, if you're watching telly or something, that is something I would really miss if I didn't have them.
Brilliant. Elis, just before we let you go, is there a question that you want to ask Nicky, who's our cat behaviourist? Is there anything maybe that you've been struggling with your own cats recently, or you've always wanted to know maybe about their behaviour? Or
two things, actually. They used to love getting on the kitchen table and on the surfaces, and I never really knew the best way of dealing with that, but they now do it less, and I'd like to know why that is. And is this something that's just going to happen forever? Is this because they go out and they don't want to be as, they're getting more opportunities to be high up? I don't know, but it's a good thing because that's not ideal. And the zoomies at midnight, why do they go mad for 20 minutes? They don't always do it, but when they do, what is happening then? Because the difference, say, between how they are at 11:50 and midnight is crazy. And then by 12:25, they're normal again. And I just think, what happened there? So that really, I'd never heard of this until I had cats. And are mice, birds, etc. genuinely gifts?
Brilliant. Amazing. Elis, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for doing that, mate. We really appreciate it.
That was a pleasure. I really enjoyed that.
So that was me catching up with the brilliant Elis James there on Cat's Got Your Tongue. Of course, Nicky, who is our resident cat expert from Cats Protection, was away on holiday, but you're here now, Nicky. I know Elis was great, by the way. He's so good. He's such a funny guy, and it's just so good to see him as a new cat dad as well, because he's a relatively sort of early point in his journey to becoming a fully fledged, cat fanatic, and it's great to see that journey.
You're just recognising all the stages and seeing like yourself from like back then.
Honestly, he was telling me things and I'm going, yeah, that will happen. Okay, it's going to get even worse. Trust me, in a good way. So you've been away, Nicky, on holiday.
Yes.
Any sort of cat news you can report from your holiday for us?
Oh, I've had a lovely time down in Cornwall. Cornwall is always a good idea. And it's just like, how like they've got all these beautiful picturesque little coves and fishing villages and things. And just seeing the cats chilling against the amazing backdrop of Cornwall It was just really special.
Yeah, so nice. I love seeing, like, when I'm away on holiday, my holiday will just be completely enhanced if I see a cat.
Definitely.
Well, my day will be anyway.
Oh, exactly.
You've got to have a holiday, but
even if you're not, it's like, obviously we like to go over and stroke them, but like they're like cat art, aren't they?
Oh.
Against the sort of the beautiful backdrops.
Yeah.
And you've been on holiday too, haven't you?
yeah, I went to Greece. I went to Rhodes.
Amazing.
And I mean, the reason why I love Greece, people say to me why. I was like, well, the weather,
Obviously.
the food,
Yeah.
but mainly the cats. To
Yes.
be honest,
There's like cats of Greece, like they make all the calendars, don't they?
Yeah, I've got loads of fridge magnets with Greek cats on. I've got a couple of calendars that I've never written on before. I just got them because I like the pictures.
Yeah.
Anything with a cat on. I've got tea towels of places I've been to in Greece with the cats embroidered on and everything basically. And yeah, there was loads. There was loads there. And the hotel. Let's get this right. The hotel I was staying at, it was amazing because day one, straight away, within like the first 20 minutes of being there, I saw a cat. So I was like, right, okay, this is going to be a good hotel. I didn't care what the food was like or what the room was like. I was like, these cats, it's brilliant. So saw a cat, and then basically I got chatting to, I was started stroking the cat, and one of the staff members was like, oh, you like cats? I was like, mate, that's an understatement, yeah. And he's like, oh, well, we actually, we look after the cats here. We feed them. So they had like 6 sort of resident cats. They were probably originally strays, but they looked after them. So they had like a little feeding station set up and a little house for them to go in at night. And it was just like, it was so nice because I've seen sort of varying kind of levels of like cats not being looked after and some cats being looked after, and and it's just some complete opposite ends of the scale sometimes of how kind of well looked after they are, but these are really, really well looked after.
Amazing.
So
but they're neutered as well.
Yeah. So they had the little
ear
tip. Yeah. So they all had that. There was 2 beautiful calico kittens that were just and a little tabby kitten. And then there was 2 black cats, and one of the black cats was completely black with a tiny white tip on its tail.
That's super cute. A bit like, I think, your shirt, which by the way is divine.
Oh yeah, this is one of my new ones.
I'm enjoying it very much.
Yeah. So it's kind of similar to the ones that I've wore previously, but it's got a bit of colour on this one. So,
do you wear these shirts abroad, by the way? Are you sort of like cat dad abroad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So
amazing.
Yeah, I've taken with me.
I'd expect nothing less.
Yeah,
from
yeah. So everything with cats on. So I wore a couple of these shirts on holiday. So what I was saying was, so I was like, oh, brilliant! This hotel really cares about cats. So on the reception, they had a couple of like pamphlets out and leaflets and that kind of thing, and they had a little collection box, and it was for the welfare of the cat. So it was like, oh, anything you donate we'll spend on food, and they have vets going in quite regularly to the hotel, which is brilliant. I was like, so good, because obviously they said don't feed the cats because we feed them. Yeah. Obviously holidaymakers, cat lovers like me, I'm there going sneaking some ham from the breakfast buffet to feed to it, and it's just hard not to do that, isn't it? So I was like, well, actually, I know these cats are getting a lot of sustenance. I know they're being looked after. So you kind of could resist it, and
definitely. And it's a good compromise, because obviously there'll be some people that don't want cats in like the restaurant area. Yeah. So it sort of works for both groups of people.
Definitely. So I'm looking at this donation box, and I've put a couple of euros in there, and then I look to the side, and there's a issue of the Cat magazine.
The Cat magazine.
It sounds like I'm just saying this as like honestly, right? An actual, and I was like, the Cat magazine,
amazing,
Cats Protection logo on there, and I'm like, wow.
It's made it to Rhodes.
I was like, how is this in Rhodes in this hotel, right? So then, even better than that, I open the front cover, and there's a page dedicated to this podcast with my picture on there, and I was like,
and you're like.
Yeah, this last day as well. I literally about to go home, so I was like, I wish I could have mentioned this earlier to the people behind they might have got a little bit of a freebie thrown in or something. But I don't know. But I thought the staff might have gone, "Wow, you're the guy from the magazine." Anyway, I didn't make a big deal of it. I should have done really in hindsight. I just played it cool.
Yeah.
But can you believe that though?
That's so exciting.
Because I thought everyone else who loves cats, the chances are they're going to go and donate some money to that, and the magazine was right there next to it.
That's exciting. Maybe we'll get some questions from Rhodes.
Yeah, can you imagine that?
That would be so cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's like a question. We saw this guy recently at a hotel in Rhodes, and he was obsessed with cats. Yeah, it turns out it was me. So yeah, it was just, I couldn't believe it. It just was like surreal.
It's really exciting though. I mean, it's like the longest standing cat magazine in the world. So
is it really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been running a long time. I want to say it's like 1935, something like that. It certainly was helping cats throughout the war. I
didn't expect you to say 1935. I thought you were going to say like about 2003. I really thought that would have been impressive enough, but wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's made it all the way out to Rhodes. So I don't know how it's got there. maybe they've worked with them before, with Cats Protection before, or maybe someone else has taken that out with them. Anyway, it was fascinating. And I'll be honest with you, it made the holiday even better for me.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Honestly, I was there going, there's a reason why I was drawn to this hotel. Probably because it was a pretty good deal to go, to be fair. I got a pretty good price on it. But no, I was there going, it's meant to be. This was the hotel. It's like, when they say, like, it was like the hotel had chosen me. And it was like, Adam, you need to come to this hotel because we look after cats here.
You just know. I think you almost like need your own like review of hotels and places to stay based on like, cares for cats, would come again.
Oh, 100%. I think if I do go on TripAdvisor and give that hotel a review, it'll be the first thing I mention, definitely. I mean, everything else was beautiful. The food was great. Yeah. The rooms were really nice. The staff were amazing, but the cats were the standout part of the hotel, to be honest with you.
They were the stars.
That's got them to 5 stars. So, yeah, it was amazing. So good. But, yeah, I'm still in shock. I took some pictures of it as well, just to, if anyone didn't believe me. So, yeah. Anyway, you're here to answer some questions. Elis was great. He actually left some questions for you. He had loads of questions, and I was there going, if only Nicky was here. I was like, yeah, I can't really help you out with them, unfortunately, mate. I can give you, my opinion, but there's a couple of things that he, as a relatively new cat owner, I think he's still at that stage where he's like, what do I do? Why is the cat doing this? So I'll just kind of go through some of the questions that he wanted to run past you, really.
Great.
So one of the first things that he said was that his cats used to love getting onto kitchen surfaces and tabletops, but then they just suddenly stopped doing it. They're relatively young cats as well.
Yep.
And firstly, he wants to know why they might have stopped doing it, but also he didn't know how to deal with it properly at the time. So any advice for any other cat owners who can't stop the cats getting on surfaces? So obviously it was a bit like, for him, I think he was a bit kind of, what do I do? Do I tell the cat off? How do I stop them doing it? Should they be doing this? Is it going to be something now they do forever? So he was a bit all at sea with it, to be fair to him.
That's fine. And like I say, loads of people have been in the same boat as well, particularly for like new cat owners. So cats jumping on surfaces, it does frustrate a lot of people. Loads of people identify with this. It is a normal cat behaviour because they like to get up high and feel safe. So it's a case of making sure, and certainly going forwards, that he's got lots of other places for the cats to get up high. So they don't necessarily have to invest in cat trees, but we all know that they love a good cat tree. Yeah. But even just like clearing a shelf like on a windowsill or shelves on a bookcase, and making sure there's easy access up and back down again can make a real difference. So cats like to be able to sort of view their surroundings from up high and the safety of that. The other thing is what the other reason I might get up onto kitchen surfaces is because of food. Yeah. Particularly if there's anything meat-based up there, then, the smell is irresistible to them. So a lot of that's more management. So if you happen to have a door and it's not open plan to your kitchen, that you can shut the door and shut them out of the kitchen. If you're cooling meat down, again, just trying to do it away from the cats. That said, cats can be really determined. I know a cat that broke into a microwave. And the day before they were due to be neutered, when they're meant to be like nil by mouth, so no food by mouth, and they'd broken into a microwave where there was actually like a cooked duck that was cooling down, and they stuffed their face and then weren't able to make it to surgery. The owner was very apologetic, but they're like, well, there's a will, there's a way. Yeah. So it's challenging, but it's thinking around it, and maybe feeding them like just before you're having meal time, so that they're away, separate, and then they're sort of occupied and having food. So yeah.
One of the main things that he asked a couple of times, which it was great to see, again, him as a relatively sort of newcomer to cats, zoomies are just completely confused him. He's like, what are the zoomies at midnight? He said it doesn't happen every night with his cats, but what is happening? He said the difference in their behaviour at 11:50 and midnight is crazy. He says a few minutes later, they're back to normal. Yep. So he just like, what is it? So yeah, if you can shed some light on that, because it's probably, if you're someone who's relatively new to cats, it's quite a strange thing to see it sometimes, isn't it? Or hear it. It's a bit like, whoa, what's happening?
Definitely. And I fully identify with it as well, because back when my cat was a kitten, we had the midnight zoomies as well, and ours happened to be like literally doing laps up and over the bed, like round and round. I am happy to report that it did stop when he was about a year old. So depending on how old his cats are, as they sort of get older, they do start to come down. That said, all cats will have some level of zoomies throughout most of their life, I'd say, and it's just a way of like expelling excess energy. It's really good. Some people, like the sort of scientific way of explaining it is locomotor play, as in running around and playing, you know. But and if you think about it, kids do that all the time, just like running around and having a good laugh. And it's good sort of exercise. It's good, you know, for mental health and everything else. But mainly it is more about just expelling excess energy. It's normal behaviour.
Is it more common in indoor cats than outdoor cats because they're arguably getting less sort of exercise or, you know, sort of stimulation?
I would have thought so, and also because potentially cats could be having zoomies outside without you seeing it. So,
doing it in public, bless them.
I know.
So it's something you just get used to as well, I think.
Yeah.
I tried to explain to him, I said, you just get used to that every now and then. You'll just hear a cat charging around your house, and you're like, there they go again. It's fine. And then something that always crops up, which we've had a few times on the podcast, are birds and mice genuinely gifts?
Oh, see, I always feel really sad when this question comes up because the real answer is no. Yeah. But people tolerate it a lot better when they do think it's a gift. So I don't want them to be hating on the cats. I appreciate fully that it's a contentious issue, and most of us, like, you know, really love wildlife as well as our cats. You know, but no, later science is that they just bring prey back to the core territory, which generally speaking includes the house. Yeah. Sometimes close to the owner as well. So, and that's just usually so that, you know, they're not taken by the cats, for example.
So it's basically bringing it back to
where they feel safe.
Somewhere that they feel like is, you know, bringing it back to safety almost.
Yeah, definitely.
But if it makes you feel better, think of it as a gift. If it makes you feel
better.
Makes
you feel better.
Yeah. We don't want to burst anyone's bubble.
No, exactly. That's the thing. I don't want to burst the bubbles, but yeah. And there's plenty that can be done to help reduce predation as well. So, having lots of interactive play sessions with the cat, so it's fun for the owner and fun for the cat. So even just like 5 minutes or something, just waving that fishing rod toy around and really letting the cat catch and really grab the toy, that releases endorphins, makes them feel good, and it's just an alternative outlet for that behaviour. You know
when they do that, you know, an outdoor cat will have that sort of hunting behaviour where they might bring a bird or a mouse. Are they sort of fulfilling that desire to want to hunt? It's not because they're hungry.
Yeah, exactly that. And it shows that the hunting drive is separate to the hunger drive. And it goes back to sort of African wildcat behaviour, which is they've got shared ancestry with, because they have to eat little and often. That's how their bodies are actually designed. And because the hunting success on average in the wild is about 1 in 4, obviously sometimes it could be worse, they have to just continually go whether they're hungry or not, because if they had a really bad run, for example, they could starve. So they have to, and I love that someone's worked this out, but the mice are 32 calories. Yeah, isn't that insane? And cats need a sort of about 120 calories, no, 270 calories. So it's about 10 to 12 mice that they need, or like, you know, in the wild, for example. So yeah, they have to sort of be ready.
32 calories. I can't believe there's less calories in a mouse than in a Freddo. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. Literally, I worked it out because I'm quite a keen chocolate fanatic, and it's like a little sort of square of a very popular chocolate. So that's about 34 calories.
I can't believe it. 34 calories in a mouse, you see. You learn something new on this podcast every single episode. So we've got time to squeeze in a final question from a listener as well this week. This is, honestly, Nicky, as soon as I saw this question come in, I was like, bless him. This is from Albert, age 7. Wait for this. And he said, how can I tell if my cat Jasper is happy? I never see him smiling.
That is the cutest question.
It's the cutest question we've had.
It's the cutest question. And I love the younger audience questions the most, I think. Also because kids also ask what we're all thinking. Because let's be honest, that is an amazing welfare question, isn't it?
Because I know what he means.
Oh, for sure.
Because I'm thinking, because sometimes cats are quite hard to read, obviously, the face, but with these other indicators, isn't they? But
yeah,
when I read that, I was like, it's really cute, but at the same time, I'm like, but I'm really intrigued to know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
So
Definitely. So how can you tell your cat's happy? Mostly it will come down to context, because you can't just look at body language alone. So for example, purring, which is amazing. We all love cats purring, but the sad and awkward thing is they can purr when they're in pain. So, for example, if they've been hit by a car and they're at the vets, they can purr in those circumstances as well. If you've got a cat and it's looking really relaxed, you know, stretched out, and it's on your lap purring, then the cat's going to be happy. Another one is like the tail up is a greeting. So where it's curved at the tip, that's a greeting behaviour. Chirping is a greeting behaviour, where they go, yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that's. So if his cat chirps at him, then again, that's a really good sign. Head bunting is the proper name, but head butting, I think a lot of us could call it, where the cat sort of, rubs their head against you. Shows that they're happy, but also they're happy with relationship with you. They're actually spreading scent onto us and making a sort of like a communal group scent. So they're basically like, you're my mate, you're my buddy, or family, or whatever. So that's really nice as well. Nose to nose touching. Sometimes if you've seen it where the cats just literally like kind of sniff your nose.
Yeah.
So cats will do that to each other, but they sometimes do it to us too. But even if they extend a finger and they sort of rub on your hand, again, the cats will be happy doing that. So there's all sorts of things. Wanting to spend time with you in close proximity, that will make them happy. And then providing for all their cat needs, just like you do, Adam, with Ruby. Yeah. But, all the different resources that they need. So food bowls, water bowls, litter trays, hiding places to get up high, scratch posts, all spaced out across the home. And that can make cats really happy too.
Sometimes... when you see some pictures of cats and they go, to be honest with Ruby as well, people often say, she looks like she's fuming all the time, because they've not very got the most expressive faces, have they, really, cats? It must be something to do with the muscles, I suppose, in the face.
It is the muscles, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure, to be fair, I probably heard you say that before on this podcast, so maybe I'm passing off some of your information. But, yeah, maybe that's probably why they can't smile, can they, really? Do you know what I mean? But obviously, if these other ways that it's like those sort of, indicators that's kind of the equivalent of them smiling, isn't it, really?
Definitely. And what I haven't mentioned so far, but slow blinking, when they sort of really slowly close their eyes. And we can do this to cats as a sort of smiling at them. And I always say perfect cat etiquette is to do the slow blink and then just really slowly turn your head away for perfect cat etiquette.
So it's like mimicking what they do.
Yeah, definitely. So what it means is I'm no threat to you and I'm comfortable in your presence and stuff. And then what the really exciting thing is if they slow blink back at you. So you start off a slow blink and the cat's like, yeah, we're cool. We're chill.
So cool,
and children can do this too. And it's a really great thing for at any age where they're going to slow blink at a cat, turn their head away a little bit and then just out of the corner of their eye, see if the cat slow blinks them back.
That's so cool. So you could basically kind of almost speak a cat's language.
Yeah,
really.
Smile with your eyes.
Yeah. So hopefully, Albert, that's cleared it up a little bit. So even if your cat isn't smiling, it doesn't mean to say that Jasper isn't happy. There's loads of other ways to see if he is happy, which I'm sure he is, because Albert sounds like a great little kid. Right, let's end it there, Nicky. I think that's all we've got time for this week on Cat's Got Your Tongue. Thanks again to Elis James for joining us today. Thank you as always, Nicky. It's great to have you back with us.
Thank you.
Please hit subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And don't forget, if you know people who love cats, maybe friends or family members, tell them all about us. Share the podcast, give us a review as well. And if you want to get in touch and share your own cat's tales, or you want to get a question to Nicky, you can send an email on pod@cats.org.uk or send us a text or a voice note on our WhatsApp on 07824 551 076. We'll see you next time on Cat's Got Your Tongue. So if you've got a few spare hours a week and fancy doing something amazing for cats, why not become a cats protection volunteer? From cat care to fundraising and everything else in between, Cats Protection want cat lovers like you to be part of their team of dedicated volunteers. You can find out more now at cats.org.uk/volunteering.